What's up, all you absolute degenerates out there? This is going to be a little bit of a different video. Yours truly has been dabbling with GameMaker. Something I've always wanted to do was figure out how to make games, and I'm just going to go through a bunch of tutorials from, at least right now, from GameMaker themselves. And so I started doing that with the first one that I found, and I decided to iterate on it a little bit, and just, I figured if I keep making changes that would make sense if this were a game, then I'll just learn how to do more and more interesting things. So I don't know, I thought it might be cool to document kind of how this is going. Maybe I only do this once, maybe I do it every time, maybe I do it sometimes. I really don't know yet. But also, for learning, I've been studying for a lot of IT certifications in my life, and if you can explain something at all, then that helps with understanding. So maybe talking about it will also reinforce things that I've discovered. So yeah, let me open up GameMaker here, and we'll take a gander. We'll go on an adventure together. Okay, so this is like the first game that the tutorials have you make. You're like this little blobby dude here, and it's just a basic platformer. He gives you the sprites, which that's something that was important to me. I didn't want to get bogged down in making a lot of sprites on just test games. I'm just trying to learn, right? So he sets you up with some blocks and some sprites and a flag and a little dopey dude that does actually animate. Let me show you here. He does indeed actually animate, if I remember how to get to it. Not usually on my Mac for this, so even that alone just feels wrong. I think I gotta look at the sprite. Yeah, so here you can see, yeah, so he does actually animate. I mean, ridiculously fast in the scheme of things, but he does actually animate. So that's pretty cute. So I made the first layout of rooms, and of this room, and I was like, what if I just made more levels, right? Because we had this flag, and you set it in the flag. You have to go in. Oh, a lot you doing the player. You have to go in, and I was like, all right, well, when player meets the flag, God, don't zoom in. Sorry, the MacBook problems. When player meets the flag, you go to the next room. It's gonna be in here somewhere. Ah, yes. So if the object that I'm editing, if his place is meeting the X, Y, and the O flag, go to the next room. So that's kind of the basic thing that we had. We had move left, move right. We had jump. If you hit space, you jump. We had collision basically with the blocks, move and collide, and place meeting. He didn't go into a lot of text description of those, so a lot of move and collide, I'm not entirely sure. Oh, if you mouse over it, it kind of tells you. I'm not going to do that at this very moment, but yeah, I don't exactly know the details of how we made collision out of that. I'm guessing it's something to do with how it repositions your Y slightly over the block if meeting it. Maybe. It'll probably make more sense as I go. But yeah, so then, I had the room and I had the flag, so I was like, well, let me make more rooms. So then I started iterating on more rooms. I was like, okay, well, we don't have a lot of obstacles. So what's something that I can do to make it more interesting is, jumps, dangerous jumps maybe, combine spikes with a jump, maybe do a drop. So I had that. Oh, again, you're not supposed to see that. Pretend these aren't here. I added all of those later. So I made some more rooms. We're expanding on the moves that you have, which again is not a lot. So here I kind of added my first little, I'm going to call it like a horizontal long jump. If you kind of jump into this, you preserve your speed and momentum, so you can kind of hover across the game. Even though it looks like you're going to bump your head and fall, you just kind of, whoop, you kind of, it's hard to describe it. Maybe I can show it. I mean, I'll have footage of it at some point. And then you'll see here, at one point I encountered the question of, well, if I miss a jump, I just fall off the map forever. So I decided to just put spikes there, but I didn't want you to see the spikes. You know, that would be kind of uninteresting after a while. So I made them invisible. I left an outline here for me to see them. Like, there's an actual sprite, but it's not visible in game. And I just had it where it took the player and reset the room, because by default in the tutorial they made every death reset the room, which is something that I had to change later, but we'll get to that. So yeah, you'll see the invisible spikes throughout. Here I had a nice idea of some more, dangerous near miss jumps, but a long gap, and then my other type of movement puzzle I can do is like, well, you just gotta sprint off, don't jump. Although you can also jump, but like it's just basically a fall and move. I mean, I didn't have a lot of options here. Just I didn't want to go overboard adding random stuff, and I wanted to work with the minimum that I had. So we kind of have the horizontal long jump, the big jump, the spike on the side, a standard jump, and then we've got just sort of walk off the platform. And that's basically everything that I can throw at you, until I added the collectible coins, which you've probably seen me deleting from the map to try to hide from you. So as I got through, and I made 5 levels, which was just an arbitrary number, I was like, man, what if I wanted to add a coin, right? I would give them something to collect. So I went into a sprite, and I made a little coin sprite, which is the one I've been deleting everywhere. And you can see I actually made it too high, too many pixels. It should have been 16 by 16. So when you actually render the game, it doesn't scale quite right, because I probably have more lines than not in the right places to scale evenly to 16 by 16 or something. I don't know. I'm not a graphic artist. But it comes out okay. It's fine enough for what we're doing here. So then I had all the coins in place, and I made them disappear when you collect them. Let me see what we've done here on the coin. Yeah, so if it meets the player, I destroy it. And then I've implemented this little tracker. At some point, I realized if I just kill the coin, I can't do anything with it. So I decided I wanted to track when you got the coin. So I made this little invisible coin tracker here that is persistent across every map, but it has no sprite, so you'll never see it. And when you get a coin, it increments that counter. And you can see here in the coin counter that when I was debugging this, I actually did in fact make it draw text and tell me how many coins have been collected, because what I wanted to test was how to I didn't want the coins to count infinitely, right? So if you died and the room reset, the coin reset, and then you could just get the same coin over and over and increment the counter that way. And I didn't want that, because I wanted it to be that if you got every coin, then it took you to a secret level, and that's how you actually beat the game. So I was using this to test the tracking purposes until I found did I have it here on the coin? No. Oh yeah, right. So what I had to do was, when I mentioned earlier how every death was a reset of the room, that's what re-triggered the coin, right? So I had to figure out a way to kill the guy without resetting the room. So all I ended up doing was resetting his coordinates if he meets the spikes. And that was the solution to now, if I roll in with the coin counter turned on visibly, I can see that the coin does not respawn and everything. I wonder if let me see if I can show that. This is an older version of the map. I've actually done a lot more on my other PC, but I wanted to show this in earlier forms, in an earlier stage. Let me see if I can I'm just going to leave the coin big for now. And so, yeah, right now, if I get the coin and die, the coin stays. But if I had left the player the way that it used to be, which was when you hit the spike, it did a cheeky little room, was it room reset? Room. restart, excuse me. If it's a cheeky little room restart, that coin's gonna respawn. So, boop. See, and that's bad. Let me turn on the coin tracker, and I can sort of demonstrate and make him visible. So you can see here, I've got one coin, and then if the player were to die, you could just get the same coin over and over, and that should, we'll see if it does, still trigger the bonus room at coin 5. Yeah, it does, and this is before I've since changed this room up a little bit, but yeah, this is the bonus room. And so you weren't supposed to be able to get here by just getting the same coin, and so that was the things that I had to do to combat that. And then I'm pretty sure this is before I fixed this problem. Well, no, I guess I have, for the most part. I have since put walls on the edges, because back in the day when I first started, before I knew you could put stuff outside of the boundaries, you know, the player could just walk off the side of the map. I should have done this on room 1, but I'm an idiot. So, you know, I was testing all of my maps, and you know, I had the spikes at the bottom of the map that killed you, and luckily you can't see them, so that's nice. And I was like, oh, what happens if I walk off the stage? Well, the game just runs forever. So there's that. So that's when I learned, yes, I can indeed place stuff outside of the map. And you'll see also, too, you'll see that the invisible spikes at the bottom. This is still back before I knew I could move stuff completely off the map. So you kind of die a little early. I've since, if I go to the other computer on the current version of it, you'll see I've moved all of these down here. And you can still indeed see the spike sprite exists, but now you die when you fall off of the map, which is, to me, looks better. And in hindsight means I didn't really need to make a sprite, or I could have just used the visible spikes. It wouldn't have really mattered, but I just didn't realize that when I made them that I could do that. So yeah, it's changed a little bit more. Like, I've added a little bit more fine details, I would say. So let me switch. Oh, I did have to make all of the backgrounds individually. So each background is a different color. You've probably noticed. I have different flags here. So when I was at first messing around with the coin thing, again, I needed the loop to reset the player's coins. You'll see here the final flag, the blue one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that takes you back to room 1, so that you can try to collect the rest of the coins and trigger the ending. I needed it to not mess with the eventual speedrun timer that I've added, and the flag finish reel, which is the purple one in the bonus level. You actually get to go to an ending screen, which I just called a menu, but it's not really a menu. It's just a text splash screen that tells you your time. I think here, this is long enough ago, there might be nothing there. Yeah, so there's just the text that's like, hey, you won. So let me switch over to the current version of this, and I'll show you kind of the final iterations. Yeah, as I was doing many tests of this, you know, I got to thinking about how fast I could do it all, and that's what kind of prompted me to put a timer, which we'll dive into in a moment. The first thing, the big thing you'll probably notice that I changed is I was kind of thinking about, you know, if I shared this with a friend, would I really want it to be the Johnny generic sprite that I was given? So I was like, well, what can I work with that's a circle? Yeah, you may notice on the side there that I'd changed the sprite to Voltorb. Extremely legally distinct Voltorb. Which I, granted, now that I'm going to post this on YouTube, probably a bad idea. So we're just going to call that a generic Ballman. I don't know. But yeah, I figured I had a sprite that was a circle, right? So what would I do? And if I was gonna make a circle guy, I was like, okay, maybe I just make him, roll. So he rolls around my little 100% not Voltorb, and you may notice that he has different expression on his face for when he's at rest versus when he is in the middle of a roll, which was just something that I wanted to mess around with. Uh, so yeah, that's an awesome change, but one that will probably get me in trouble. You'll see the other thing that I added early on. When I was experimenting with the spawn point, I thought I was gonna make a spawn brick, a spawn block. Yeah, what was I talking? Oh, yeah. So the spawn point thing. Early on, I was gonna tie a different block to the spawn point, so I made these. I was playing around with the sprite, and I was like, oh, I can make part of it transparent. So I made a transparent block, and then when I put one in, it didn't have collision, and I realized I could go behind it, and I thought that was gonna be a neat way to sort of add challenge. I mean, not real challenge, but like, if you're not paying attention, you're gonna think you got to do something, and I do kind of try to manipulate that a few times, as you'll see if you go through the whole thing. Oh, you also see I did do the speed run timer. If you hit Control and restart the game, okay, I guess it doesn't work on Mac. That's my bad. Oh, it did work. It just reset terribly, and then I had closed it. Yeah. So if you hit Control, it resets the timer. If you die, it does not. I wanted you to have to manually reset the timer because, a clean run should be a clean run. Not that anyone's going to bother with this, but, I was just sitting around. I was testing the levels so much for little things I wanted to adjust, and I was like, man, how fast can I do it? And so I timed it once manually, but it was kind of annoying to have to mess with the stopwatch. So, I was like, okay, how about I just implement a timer? So I did. You see I hid one of the translucent blocks there. So, and in the top right corner, kind of trying to bait you into thinking that's a dead end. And I mean, it's obviously not because the flag's there, but it's just like it's just a little tease. Yeah, the timer was very complicated. Let me switch back to GameMaker. I don't know why I didn't think it would be. I guess I just took for granted that you can't just be like, hey, add timer. And there are some commands. I guess the game is sort of tracking. I went through a few iterations of it that I couldn't get to work when I was looking up people's ideas for it online. And then I finally found this guy with an old video from like a clearly old version of GameMaker, but it was fine because it worked. So I had to make a nice little transparent, just like the coin tracker. Originally I had an invisible sprite. I've since went to make this little black background here for the clock to sit on. And then, we just you create the global variables and then you start a count up. And then really the complicated part is dividing it by your frame rate because of the way that it's calculated, and then having to tell it, if the global seconds are more than 60, then increment the minutes and then take the seconds back to 0, kind of a thing. Same with minutes to hours, although I don't use hours in the final thing. Like I actually also added this where if the speedrun timer hits 10 minutes, it just turns it off. And that's just because I didn't want to make a separate animation for the black box that would be bigger behind the white text if you add the other digit. And plus, if you're playing the game for 10 minutes, something went wrong. The speed limit timer is kind of irrelevant at that point. So yeah, I just made it high. That's something I added really late. And then draw end. This was the other hard part, was like telling it, okay, let me see if I can, everything fits so weirdly in my Mac. It's like it scales it up too much. But it's like if seconds are more than 10 and minutes, less than 10 and minutes are less than 10, then you have to add the zeros manually. And then it's like vice versa. Like some of these are going to be redundant. I took a picture the other day of what it was. Since I removed hours, I actually only needed 2 of these. But when I removed them, I really wasn't thinking about it. I just removed hours from every string. So 2 of these are actually redundant right now. I'll put a picture of what it should be. But basically, it's like depending on if you need or don't need to add that 0 behind or in front of rather the timer, the string. That's why those are there, and that's kind of annoying and kind of hard to wrap your brain around when you're not, since you can't picture it as you go. It's really interesting. And then at the ending screen, I decided I wanted you to be able to click on the clock and restart the game, and I just left that in through the whole game. So now, besides left control, there's also, you could just click on the timer to restart, and then you can hit escape. I believe I've added it since. You can hit escape to just quit. I would have put that on the player, I believe. And then there's also a red X that I hand drew on the ending screen that game ends. So yeah, I just thought about, the more that I went, like maybe I need a little bit more ways to do like if it was going to be a real game, I probably wouldn't just rely on the player hitting the physical X on the window. It's just kind of sloppy. And then the speed limit thing, or the speed run timer thing, made me add one final thing, which is that if you, here I can set up a test. If you beat the game, if you beat the final, which, okay, so to be clear, beating the game is getting to the end of the bonus level. So hitting the purple flag, that is at the end of room E. If you just hit the blue flag, like I said earlier, it just restarts the whole run. So if you get to this flag and under a certain time limit, it tells you what my fastest time has been. Otherwise, you don't see that text at all. And it's just kind of like a little secret Easter egg to try to egg you on if you happen to get a pretty decent time. And I had that time way lower the first time I had my buddy play it. And since then, I realized I should probably give it a little bit more wiggle room, or literally nobody who I ever asked to play this will ever beat my time. So I made it a lot friendlier before you can see my hidden time, which I won't reveal. Let me edit the text real quick. Yeah, so let me go into room 1 and I'll show you that I do indeed have the normal screen, and then if you, which also stops the count up timer. It took me a minute to think about how to do that. Luckily, I'm guessing global count up and count down. I'm guessing that count up function is just a thing because the other guys who were building sample timers were like establishing a whole nother situation. So this must be some sort of thing built in. I know there's also delta time or something, or get timer or something like that. That's from the time the game runs, but that's not always going to be accurate. I don't know. Anyway, you'll see it once you beat the game, it draws the normal text, and then if the timer has stopped, meaning that you have ended the game, and you did it in less than, I'm probably going to blur out the time, then you'll see that you get other text here down at the bottom. So if I go and manipulate room 1 real quick, and let's throw in a super secret finishing flag, and then let's say that we beat the game really fast, you'll get the hidden blue text at the bottom, and you can click on this X to close. If you don't beat it that fast, like let's say that I was the timer, and what I can do to force this to happen is I can just go, and I think it'd be a create. I can just go and start the timer. Let's say that we're starting it at 9 minutes. Actually, you know what we'll also do is I'll show you that the clock indeed disappears after 10 minutes. So if you were taking a while, you know, if I'm showing this to my parent who doesn't play video games or whatever, clock disappears, it's been 10 minutes, and then I finally beat the secret level, boom, you just get the normal ending. So I don't know, that was just all a bunch of little quality of life things that as I was playing, I felt like, what would I do if I was really making this into a game? I mean, obviously it would be a lot more. Yeah, I have to pick my battles with that. Like, I want to do, you know, certain things as if I was treating this professionally, but also, since it's clearly just a practicing tutorial to learn, I have to pick my battles onto what to sink my time into. Because I'd really like to move on to another type of thing and learn more stuff. So, you know, I had to strike a good balance. I think I did okay. Also, I forgot to talk about the bonus room now. I don't know I don't really know how I landed on this, but I wanted a different background for it. And I just realized I could put any sprite as a tiled background. So I was like, well, my coin is my best looking one, right? Because I made it at a higher pixel count. So I did that, and then I was looking at effects you can add to it. One of them was like under the sea, and I don't know. I kind of appreciated the trippiness. You'll see if you play it, like it. I think the effect gets a little funky, and it kind of like captures the sprite behind, like in the background slightly. It's hard to describe it without showing it. It gets kind of even trippier. And I kind of appreciated that it makes the spikes harder to see. Like, it does make the bonus level suddenly a bit harder, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, I was just screwing around and I came away with that. That was not really intended. But yeah, I'll post the Google Drive folder that has the executable in it. So anyone who does want to screw around with it, you know, all 3 people that watch this can do that. But I don't know, I've had a lot of fun learning this, something I've always wanted to start learning, and I hope that I make something interesting as time goes. I've had some ideas, and I just, you know, having also made music, I realize you have to make a lot of bad stuff before you start to get to the stuff that you think is pretty good. So that's really what I want to do, is just keep doing tutorials, keep making stuff, keep learning stuff, and if it's somewhat presentable, that's all I really want to hit right now, and then take all of that into something better. So hopefully I will be able to do that over time. Take a break from studying IT certifications and work on something, you know, creative again besides music. But yeah, I'll whatever that will be, maybe I'll probably see you next time playing Resident Evil again. And outside of that, God only knows. But anyone who made it this far, I appreciate it. And I'll see y'all next time.